Talk Business with Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, BCCI. Welcome as we hear the perspectives of various subject matter experts and stay up to date on the challenges and solutions around emerging and current trends in business, policies, trade, and more. Let's Talk Business with the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry is brought to you by Sagicor Cave Hill School of Business and Management and Barbados Public Workers Cooperative Credit Union Limited, BPWCCUL. We invite you to now listen to a recording from the breakfast discussion with the BCCI Risk Management and Crisis Recovery Committee, RMCRC, entitled Powering Through Crisis, Effective Risk Management and Crisis Recovery Strategies for Business Resilience. This was held on July 18, 2023 at the LESC, an in-person breakfast forum with presentations by subject matter experts. The BCCI, through its Risk Management and Crisis Recovery Committee, focuses on disaster management, as well as supporting business recovery and building resilience through crises, multi-hazards that impact the business ecosystem and the economy in general. The committee's objective is to promote knowledge sharing and to sensitize the business sector about all types of risks, from cybersecurity failures to natural disasters, and how to identify and mitigate these risks to ensure business resilience and continuity. Disaster response capability, coordination, governance, and public awareness/education are critical aspects of disaster mitigation. This event promoted disaster risk management and awareness and equipped the members of the business sector to effectively respond to future crises. The presenter is Mrs. Misha Loban Clarke, Executive Director of the BCCI, who presented on the role played by the Barbados Chamber in supporting companies through the process of business recovery and resilience.
Our next speaker is no stranger to the BCCI platform. Ms. Misha Loban Clarke, Executive Director of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce, will be presenting an overview on the ARISE network and the BCCI's role in crisis recovery and business resilience for its members. Since assuming the role as Executive Director of the BCCI in June 2019, Misha has played a key role in the implementation of the Chamber's strategic mandate and has been successfully leading the process of organizational change and repositioning the Chamber as a more visible and engaged organization. Prior to joining the Chamber, she was Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of the Caribbean, a position she held for 10 years. Her professional experience spans organizational management, corporate governance, communication, and building stakeholder relationship and strategic partnerships across different sectors. She has also provided consulting services to policymakers, corporate entities, and membership organizations across the Caribbean. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Misha Loban Clarke.
Good morning, everyone. And protocols having been established, I will move right into my presentation. So, as we're looking at powering through crisis, effective risk management and crisis recovery strategies for building resilience, I am going to just focus on the Chamber's role in supporting businesses with the crisis recovery and how, as a Chamber, we help to companies to build resilience during the last 3 years. So in terms of context, so no one, of course, you've heard from the presenters before me, really no one could have predicted the unparalleled worldwide impact of the global pandemic, which triggered global recessionary conditions, significantly depressing productive activity in Barbados in 2022 and 2021. And of course, especially our tourism and tourist-related sectors. Now, added to that, we had to grapple with the challenges linked to the disruption in the global supply chain as a result of the Russia-Ukraine crisis, but also as the small island developing states like Barbados grappled with these challenges, their vulnerability was further tested by Hurricane Elsa in 2021, July, and the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano in St. Vincent, which impacted not just St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but of course neighboring islands, including Barbados. So in a nutshell, what we would just say, the last 3 years have truly highlighted the importance of flexibility, agility, and resilience in business operations. So what were the impact on the BCCI? Now at the micro level, internally, the chamber itself was not immune to the economic disruption. We, in fact, had to close the duty-free facility owned by the chamber, which was one of our revenue sources. And this, of course, was due to the reduced visitor arrivals to Barbados, and which, of course, impacted not just the operations of the chamber's duty-free facility, but the duty-free sector in general was severely impacted. Most of our entities, our members in the duty-free sector closed, and so at the macro level, we saw a decline in our membership, particularly from those members in the duty-free sectors. Quite a number of them had to resign their membership between the 3 years. The impact of the COVID pandemic not only triggered recessions and cutbacks by companies, but some of our members actually had to close operations, sadly. So that, in a nutshell, was how we saw the decline in our membership as well as decline in our own revenue operations. Next slide, please. So what was the response of the chamber like? We conducted a COVID-19 study during the height of the pandemic, and we did it among the business sector to really look at and assess as a chamber what were the real impacts of the COVID pandemic on businesses. And the survey also sought to assess the readiness of companies in terms of their ICT capabilities to address operational requirements arising from the pandemic. So some of the key findings from the survey was that our members indicated to us that they needed the chamber to lobby government and stakeholders. They saw that as critical to the recovery process. They needed assistance from the chamber in terms of identifying new markets and new business opportunities. Of course, quite a number of our members indicated in the survey the need for business continuity planning, and I'll just emphasize here that when in terms of the chamber's membership, 75% of our membership is in fact SMEs, and therefore those were the ones that were impacted significantly. You had large businesses that were able to pivot because they had business continuity planning in place, but we also had SMEs that were, some of which were not adequately prepared for this kind of unprecedented experience in terms of the COVID and other challenges. So they actually needed the chamber to provide that level of support. They also highlighted the need for business facilitation and online technical training support as another critical need from the chamber. ICT security facilitation in terms of moving forward was also identified as another area that members indicated they needed support in. So, next slide, please. Okay, yes. So what the results of the chamber, the survey also indicated to us and informing us as a chamber was that it was critical for companies to strike the work-life balance. I think, you all saw what happened with the mass exodus in the US of persons leaving jobs because persons started the kind of impact that COVID had on the emotional and mental health of workers. I think it highlighted for companies the need for them to begin to change and shift workplace culture to emphasize more the importance of work-life balance. The survey results also highlighted the need to focus on productivity and efficiency, the need for us to ensure that we, as a chamber, is very playing an integral role as a private sector organization in supporting business recovery and resilience, and the fact that the chamber also needed to lobby for changes in terms of enhancement in the business landscape. That is to just provide a more resilient and sustainable ecosystem in which businesses can survive and thrive. So what was the Chamber's response to members during the crisis in terms of supporting the business sector? I chose to just look first at the role that the Chamber has been playing even pre-crisis. And in terms of promoting increased awareness and engagement and training, the Chamber established a disaster risk reduction committee in 2017, and this committee has been very critical in terms of supporting the promotion of knowledge and training, particularly in the area of business continuity, disaster mitigation, and the critical need for businesses to inculcate a culture of preparedness in their operations. We also, as a chamber, work very closely with the Department of Emergency Management, DEM, and entities like the Barbados Meteorological Services. And the chamber has been seen as such a critical stakeholder that we play a key role in terms of the DEM's policy, national policy framework for operational procedures for systemic national shutdown and reactivation. So for every national disaster, the chamber is a key focal point for the business sector. Why? Written into that national policy, the retail services are considered, particularly supermarkets, an essential services, and the chamber is always called upon to mobilize the retail sector in terms of ensuring during a national shutdown that there is adequate food supply. There's also an MOU that is signed with the Ministry of Agriculture by several of our retailers to ensure that there is a supply of at least 3 months' supply of essential food items that can ensure that during any pandemic, during any natural disaster, there is food supply to help to provide for the nation's needs. The BCCI also has been playing a key role in terms of our engagement with the UN in terms of, again, how we speak to disaster preparedness initiatives, in terms of the dialogue that happens at the level of the United Nations on priority areas such as resilience and climate change, and the SDGs, all of which are critical to the discussion that we're having today. So we spoke about the pre-COVID, the pre-pandemic or pre-crisis activities, and I'd like to look at this time at the activities during the crisis. So the Chamber focused in terms of its priority on member-driven activities. How do we support members during a crisis? And one of the key initiatives that we actually undertook during 2020 is to finalize our 3-year strategic plan. And that process of developing that plan actually started pre-COVID. But what it did, it gave us an appreciation during COVID to model that strategic plan to be more relevant in terms of ensuring that one of the key strategic pillars would be to ensure that we support members' business resilience, recovery, and sustainability efforts. So that's one key achievement. We also looked at customizing workshop and training events to equip SMEs with the necessary tools to support the building of their resilience and business continuity plans. And of course, that would have been informed by the results of the COVID survey. The fact is we recognize that SMEs are particularly at risk, as I mentioned earlier, in any period of crisis and uncertainty. And so we develop these strategies to effectively help them with the necessary tools to look at how do they build resilience, how do they implement business continuity plans. And I'd like to just emphasize here that UNDRR's 2020 report on SME resilience showed that despite SMEs making up 85% of Caribbean businesses, only 17% takes the necessary steps to prepare for disasters. And the report further highlighted that there is therefore a strong need for private sector organizations to integrate risk reduction strategies and business continuity planning into their business processes. The Chamber also implemented a multifaceted crisis communication plan during the COVID crisis, and it is ongoing, and it included using direct email communication to our members, our website, our social media platforms, establishing specific WhatsApp group, for example, for our retail sector or disaster managed risk reduction group, just to ensure that we had effective communication across all sectors of businesses in Barbados. So other crisis recovery activities undertaken by the Chamber, we also formulated a plan to support businesses, and that included just having online webinars. Like most businesses, the Chamber has been known to have these face-to-face events, but we also had to pivot like any other business organization to the online scenario. So we're also prepared to ensure that we continue, that there was very minimal disruption in the kind of services that we offered members, particularly ensuring that we continued our systematic program of technical training, but ensure that they were more focused on how do we help businesses to transition, how do we help businesses to look at innovative strategies to integrate digital technology, for example, into their operations. Included there, you'd know that the Chamber also played a critical role in working with the government and the BPSA, that's a private sector organization, to introduce the novel alphabet system during the COVID pandemic. And that was the alphabet system for how Barbadians, the banking hours, an alphabet system for shopping, etc., particularly given the limitations during the curfew period. Not listed on the slide, but it's important to just mention that we also, as a chamber, sought to lobby government through the private sector organization to provide measures to ease the cash flow problems being experienced by some businesses, particularly SMEs, during the crisis. And among the measures agreed to by the government was the payment of outstanding VAT refunds and personal income tax refunds to help businesses sustain their operation during the disruptions. In terms of our disaster risk reduction and building resilience initiatives, the Chamber also continues to play an integral and proactive role in terms of supporting the business sector with during multi-hazards. In fact, we work closely with the DEM and support the Barbados' national disaster preparedness and emergency strategies through various means listed here. Next slide, please. We also, through the CARICHAM network, and I'll just pause to give context, the Caribbean Chambers of Commerce is a network of 21 national chambers, including the Barbados Chamber of Commerce, and we work closely with the UNDRR to support private sector engagement in terms of how we treat to multi-hazard early warning systems, how we assist members with business continuity planning. And the CARICHAM has a BCP plan with toolkits and guides that was, the Barbados Chamber members, in particularly our DRR committee members, have been provided with the necessary training. And our intention is to have these very members in turn be the ones to offer BCP training, particularly as a value-add service to our SMEs within the Chamber's membership. So at this time, I think I'll just give a snapshot of the Chamber's role and what are our commitments in terms of supporting disaster risk reduction strategies. Now, in 2015, the UN Office of Disaster Reduction, which is the United Nations focal point for disaster risk reduction, established what they call the Private Sector Alliance for Disaster Resilient Societies, and that's called ARISE. And this is to encourage the private sector to become a more crucial partner in this disaster risk reduction efforts. Now, the ARISE network works through chambers of commerce, and the Barbados ARISE network was launched on the 13th of July, and this was the launch event actually took place as part of a larger hurricane preparedness and building resilience. And I think you would have been an integral part of that one, Kerry. Now, what are the commitments for the Barbados Chamber as an ARISE Barbados network? It's listed there that we actually, as a network, we're supposed to help raise awareness, influence, and in terms of knowledge sharing, and be a catalyst to generate innovation and collaboration in terms of risk-informed business strategies. What are some of the strategies in terms of fulfillment of our role in terms of the Global ARISE network? Listed there, the Chamber of Commerce has been involved in the launch of the Private Sector Alliance Disaster Resilient Network. We also participate annually in the Global ARISE AGM, and one of the key factors for the Chamber is that we are helping to showcase not just what the Chamber does, but what Barbados at the national level has been doing to support disaster risk reduction initiatives, particularly the private sector. So I close with looking at the future plans for the Barbados Chamber. One of the things that we will continue to do is to continue to implement disaster risk reduction and resilience initiatives to support the business sector, and we will continue to promote increased awareness, engagement, and training. This event today is one such event. We'll also continue to lobby the government and other key stakeholders to support business resilience and sustainability. And I would just like to pause here to say that, while the role of the private sector in building business resilience is critical, there's also a key role for the government to be a catalyst to ensure that it provides the enabling environment and the necessary support for the private sector to become more resilient in terms of helping to prevent, assess, and mitigate against risk. In terms of our future plans, we'll continue to implement the initiatives in support of the UNDRR ARISE commitments. And one of our key plans certainly is to ensure the rollout of training for our members as a practical training for small SMEs within the membership of the Chamber, using, of course, the CARICHAM UNDRR toolkit. Because at the end of the day, we recognize that business continuity planning is very vital to enhancing the resilience of the private sector. The COVID-19 and multi-hazards have brought to the fore that businesses need to prevent and mitigate their risk by ensuring that they have in place BCP plans that will ensure operational continuity. Thank you for your attention and your time.
That was a recording from the breakfast discussion with the BCCI Risk Management and Crisis Recovery Committee, RMCRC. You heard the presenter, Ms. Misha Loban Clarke, Executive Director of the BCCI, who presented on the role played by the Barbados Chamber in supporting companies through the process of business recovery and resilience. That's it for another edition of Let's Talk Business with Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, BCCI. Join us again next time as we hear the perspectives of various subject matter experts and stay up to date on the challenges and solutions around emerging and current trends in business, policies, trade, and more. Let's Talk Business with the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry is brought to you by Sagicor Cave Hill School of Business and Management and Barbados Public Workers Cooperative Credit Union Limited, BPWCCUL.